our mind, the evolutionary logical part of us, tends to want to be all or nothing on certain topics. My mind specifically loves to be all or nothing, black or white. Like if I'm going to do something, I got to go all in, or like what's the point in doing it? And as you guys know, we do not live in a black or white, all or nothing world. We live in a beautiful world of so many different colors, like literally, and on different areas and aspects, which I'll get into. There's a wide range. Like our systems want us to think you're left or right, Republican or Democrat, pro-life or pro-choice, blah, blah, blah. There's a side, there's a duality to everything, right? But you can be in the middle. And the same comes with our mind and our intuition. You're not just your mind or just your intuition. You're a blend of both. Welcome to Alignment Adventures. This is a podcast where we explore what it means to live a fulfilling, aligning, and present life. I'm your host, Lindsay Tanner, and I am so grateful that you are here. Hello, my loves, and welcome back to another episode of Alignment Adventures. I hope you all are doing so well. And you know what's interesting? I almost felt like I should say hello, friends. I've been saying hello, loves, I think almost since the beginning episode, or at least one of the first episodes I started saying that. And it feels resonant because I just want love to be like a underlying vibration of this episode. I do consider you guys my loves, just kind of a fun way to say it, but I also consider you my friends. I hope when you listen to these episodes, especially the solo episodes and even the interviews, you feel like you're sitting down and just having a deep conversation with a friend. That is one of my favorite things to do, preferably at a cute local coffee shop, drinking a rose latte. That is something I've been loving recently, and just talking about these deep, aligning, profound, just juicy, fun topics. I love, love, love doing this. So hopefully that's what it feels like to you. You're just sitting here having your coffee or whatever drink you prefer, having a chat with a good old friend. Well, there are so many things I want to talk about today, and I'm going to start with just addressing like the heaviness of the world. And I don't want to get into the specifics, but it seems like very often, every other week or even every day, there is just something that happens that just stops you dead in your tracks, that has happened somewhere in the world or even in our country, wherever you're listening. And it's just incredibly difficult to wrap your mind around how something so horrific can happen. And I'm sure you guys know what I'm referring to this week because I'm recording this just a few days before it's released. And it's just like this collective heavy energy that we can all be feeling. And just know if you're feeling that, I'm right there with you. And it's just mind-boggling how these things are happening. Like we don't understand how the most vulnerable and pure part of our population, our kids, are being attacked like this. And I don't have answers by any means. I mean, I ponder this stuff all the time, guys. Steven's like, your brain must hurt. I'm like, yeah, it does sometimes, because I'm constantly thinking about these deep topics. So again, if you ever really want to talk about this, message me on Instagram and we can get into some of this stuff. But when things like this happen, it's emotionally taxing on everyone. Like it's just so horrific, and emotions are at an all-time high. And again, there's so much that goes into this. The fact that we have this information so fast to us, the ability for everyone to know so quickly about this horrific event, so many factors going in trying to solve this issue. I mean, it's such a multifaceted problem. But what I always come back to is the fact that a lot of times we think we don't have the ability to affect the global world. Like, how am I as an individual going to help this scenario? And it could be the one I'm talking about right now, or really any scenario you can think of, whether it's global or national or even just in your life. And know that as an individual, you have so much power. Yes, we can't do everything. We can't solve every single problem. but the small shifts that you're making daily by raising your vibration and exploring your consciousness and making better choices for yourself and for your family, those make huge impacts. And I'm not saying that that's going to solve this specific problem necessarily, but the more people we have tuning into themselves, tuning into their internal guidance, remembering that they have that loving, all-knowing part of them, I truly believe that's what's going to help shift our earth, our population, our community. And it just seems like we're in a very rocky time. And if you listen to any spiritual teacher out there, everyone says that this period of time is like a huge shift. So many shifts going on. And that's why it seems like there's just crazy stuff happening all the time. Literally things our minds can't even comprehend how horrific some of these things are. And I truly believe some of the best work you can do is, one, allow yourself to feel the feelings. If you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling sad, if you're feeling angry, if you're feeling whatever about the situation, that is valid. Feel that. Then tune into yourself and ask your internal guidance what direct action you should take. Maybe it is, taking a more active role in a cause that you think is going to help that situation. And if that is aligning to you, that's beautiful. Maybe it is just forming a deeper connection with yourself so you do know what is aligning for you rather than what you think you should do, because there's a lot of shoulds out there. You guys know I do not like that word, should. There's so many shoulds out there. And understandably so. Like, these are so horrific. Like, people just want a solution. And I do believe we are so incredibly intelligent. We are an incredibly intelligent and wise and in tune species. There's a solution out there. We just have to get back to ourselves and start working together instead of against each other. That's what I hate about these scenarios too, besides it being just like completely horrific, is that there's so much division that's caused by these events, which we need to be coming together now more than ever. Coming together, hearing each other out, sitting down, having conscious, open conversations about these topics. So that is something I've been trying to do recently, is just keep an open mind to other perspectives, and just having open dialogue, I think, is so powerful. So powerful. It's easy to let our emotions get in the way of those conversations, and our emotions are valid, definitely. That's why I'm saying feel the feels, but just be open. Be open and let's come together, because if we come together, there's a solution out there to a lot of these issues that we face. I know it. I feel it in my heart. And I think that's a part of this process, is our communities, our world is just shifting, and it's hard. It's really hard to navigate sometimes. So just show yourself some compassion. You are living in an unprecedented time, I believe. We are all living in an unprecedented time. And I think coming back to yourself is just some of the most powerful work you can do in this time and space. So that is something I felt called to share right off the bat, just because I know things are going to keep happening, like horrific things are probably going to keep happening, and just coming back to that reminder, feel the feels, come back to yourself, do what feels aligning, more collaboration over pitting each other against each other on these issues, I think is what's going to help us come to a solution that's going to help everyone in the collective. So let's get into today's topic. So today's topic was inspired by, of course, my own experience, isn't it always, on this alignment adventure, as well as something I heard Jess Lively, which she's now going by Bella Lively. If you're intrigued by that, go listen to her stuff, her podcast. And it's just interesting, the synchronicities. I always talk about synchronicities, but when you're tapped in to your internal guidance, which is connected to all the other internal guidances out there, synchronicities show up, and they're not by coincidence. It's for a reason. So I found it very interesting. And what I want to talk about today is how the mind, you guys know we talk about the difference between the mind and our internal guidance, or the ego versus your heart, or ego versus your intuition. We live in a dual situation, I believe. Our mind, the evolutionary, logical part of us, tends to want to be all or nothing on certain topics. My mind specifically loves to be all or nothing, black or white. Like if I'm going to do something, I got to go all in, or like, what's the point in doing it? And as you guys know, we do not live in a black or white, all or nothing world. We live in a beautiful world of so many different colors, like literally, and on different areas and aspects, which I'll get into. There's a wide range. Like our systems want us to think you're left or right, Republican or Democrat, pro-life or pro-choice, blah, blah, there's a side, there's a duality to everything, right? But you can be in the middle. And the same comes with our mind and our intuition. You're not just your mind or just your intuition. You're a blend of both. And I would go as far to say that most people are a blend of both on certain topics and certain situations. But right now we're just seeing a lot of extremes. And I get it. I can feel my own mind wanting to go there. It just wants to go to the extreme with things. Like it's like an all or nothing situation. So I want to talk about a specific scenario that's come up for me recently. This all started when I went to go see the second Avatar Way of the Water. Guys, I don't know what it is about the Avatar movies. I'm sure a lot of you can relate. But when I saw the first one and the second one, like it resonates on such a deep level. Like I can't even explain. I don't know if I was part of Pandora in a past life or whatever it is, or if it's just connecting to ancient parts of ourselves, like that story of being connected to the land and being so interconnected. Like, that movie just hits for me. It is so good. If I had to name my favorite movie, it would be Avatar. And what's interesting is, this is a side note and tangent, but just again, synchronicities. Some of my favorite movies are James Cameron movies. He's the director of Avatar. An interesting fact, Mom, I know you're listening, you're gonna smile at this fact. My mom got the idea for my name from one of his movies called The Abyss. Lindsay was a character in that movie. And I just think that's so synchronistic, and I love how full circle that is. And now I'm obsessed with one of his movies now, Avatar, and I love Titanic. And yeah, just a big James Cameron fan. Anywho, so I saw the second Avatar. Demi, my friend, came over and babysat Arlo. Thank you, Demi. She's such a gem. So appreciative of that. And Steven and I were able to go see Avatar because it's a long movie. It's like 3.5 hours. And everyone kept saying, oh, it's too long. It's too long. I did not think it's too long at all because I love it. When you love something, you don't want it to end. So I saw the movie, and I'm not going to get into the specifics, but if you've seen the first one, similar story. It just, really digs into that story of the people being really connected to the land and to the other animals that live, so on and so forth. And it really got me thinking about something that I've felt nudged to do before, did it for a little bit, stopped, and I've been feeling the nudge again. And my mind wants to do all or nothing, like all the way or nothing at all. And that is reducing the amount of animal products I consume. So we know in today's society, we like to put a label on that, and that's called being vegan. And again, I feel like that's a very black or white situation. You're either vegan or not vegan. You're either eating meat or not eating meat. And you want to go to one extreme or the other. And that's what my mind wanted to do. What's interesting, though, is for me personally, on a personal level, I've never been that into meat. Like, yes, I've eaten meat before and I've enjoyed some meat dishes, but I never just crave it. Maybe a little bit when I was pregnant, but other than that, sometimes I don't even like the taste of it, which is so sad if you are vegan or vegetarian, or if you've ever even considered diving into the ethical reasons for it. Once you see it, once you know, you can't unknow. It's one of those things. Once you know, you can't unknow, even when it comes to dairy. And I don't want to turn this into a convince you to be vegan or vegetarian podcast. That's not what I'm trying to do. But if you're intrigued, just go explore a little bit. Even when it comes to dairy, I feel like our perceptions of what we're doing to the cows and what's actually happening are skewed and different. And as a lactating mother, that just really pulled on my heartstrings. So I'm even trying to reduce dairy. So that's the journey I've been on recently. So I would, I'm not going to put labels on anything, even though my mind wants to be one extreme or the other. I've just been trying to drastically reduce the amount of animal products I am consuming. Now, I have had a little cheese here and there, but other than that, it's been pretty easy and pretty simple. Like my husband loves eating meat, craves it all the time. So you think that would be difficult, him trying to cook a meal and then me trying to cook a meal, but we've made it work. So the meals we're cooking really have a lot of other stuff going on, so I can really just focus on the veggies and the plants and the grains and the legumes and the beans in the dish and still eat. And that's been pretty sustainable so far. We've been doing it for about a week and a half, like actually saying that I'm not eating meat. Like I haven't had any meat. I've had a little bit of dairy products here and there, but I just feel so good. I want to say that too. Like it feels really good. So again, like always follow those nudges. I've been getting that nudge and then seeing Avatar like sealed the deal. And if you've seen the second movie, you know what I'm talking about in terms of the animals there, but seeing a specific scenario there, I'm like, that's what happens all the time in terms of us eating animals. Again, okay, not getting into specifics there. If you want a whole episode on my reasons for not eating animals, maybe I can do that. But I know that's just a hot topic for some people. So I encourage you, follow your own internal guidance. I'm not here to tell you to stop eating animals. I'm here to tell you to tune into your internal guidance and see what's right for you, because there are 1,000 different ways you can eat out there, and everyone's trying to tell you what's right or wrong. I think that is one of the most important skills. Again, going back to what I said in the beginning, is tuning into ourselves. What's right for you? Because a lot of times, especially when it comes to food, we're just eating what we're used to, maybe with what we were raised with. Which, going back to that, like I was never a kid that loved milk. Like I don't even think my parents tried to make me drink milk, or maybe they did, but I've just never, I've always loved cheese. I feel like that's a common one, but I've never really liked milk. And there's so many good milk alternatives out there, but that can play a huge factor, not only in our food, but just our way of life, is how we were raised, what we're used to, where we live. Just start to gently question those things. Why do you do the things you do? And is there another way you want to do them? And with that being said, you don't have to be all or nothing. You don't have to be vegan or vegetarian or pro-life, pro-choice. We can be somewhere in between, and that's okay, as long as you are acting from a space that is connected to yourself, connected to your heart, connected to your intuition and your internal guidance. That is the correct path for you. I even was curious just to hear what like Abraham Hicks had to say about being vegan. If you guys know, I've talked about them many times. I'm actually going to see them live this Saturday. I'm going to do a whole episode on that. If you're intrigued on Abraham Hicks, look it up. It can be kind of confusing. I'll do a whole episode on that. But they said the same thing. Like there's 1,000 different ways you can eat out there. And you really have to tune into yourself, because we kind of all need individualized things. Right? So tuning into yourself and eating what's right for you, which I do think there's some general aspects that are good for all of us, right? Like eating more whole foods, eating more organic foods, less processed foods, things that are fresh, that we've even grown ourselves, which I'd love to do someday. I think that's beneficial for all of us. I'm not saying eating meat is right or wrong, but the way we're doing it right now is very unsustainable, right? Like the problem with the way humans tend to do things is we, again, take things to extremes. We're all or nothing. So we're totally just like intentionally creating animals just to kill them on like an insane level. So my message here today, what I want you to take home with you, what I want you to take to heart, what I want you to act on, homework if it feels aligned, is just kind of maybe hit some of those topics you want to go extreme on, all or nothing. And really go within yourself to see what is true for you, what is right for you, what do you need in this moment? Because a lot of times too, we're craving different things, and that's for a reason. Again, I'm just relating to food right now, but a lot of times we crave different things, and that is for a specific reason, and it's okay to act on those things. And I just think food, again, like we talked about last week with Tim Wallace, the medical intuitive, such an interesting conversation. What we're eating plays such an important part in our alignment. If we don't feel good, a lot of times that can be related to what we're eating or not eating and our gut health. And our gut health is so important. Like, so many of us are struggling with gut issues, and it just has to do with us not taking care of that microbiome that is like its own ecosystem inside our gut. Again, I'm not an expert in all of these, but if you're intrigued, just explore those topics. So one last thing I do want to say is, since this is at the top of my mind, if you're feeling really hopeless about our world and our society right now, I'm going to leave a podcast episode. I've been listening to Regina Meredith's podcast. She is one of the main hosts on Gaia. You guys have heard me talk about Gaia before. I've given my top recommendations on that platform. It's like consciousness Netflix. It's like woo-woo spiritual Netflix. It's an amazing platform. They're showing stuff on there that they don't show on the mainstream media, which again, that's another place you really need to be discerning and tuning in, is when you're watching the news, because different narratives and different agendas are playing into that. I think that's becoming more and more obvious. So really tune into yourself, limit the news, stay informed, but again, limit those narratives that you are exposing yourself to. Anyways, she has her own podcast, and she has a 3-part episode with Penny Kelly, who's the author of Robes. Just go and listen. She basically is telling the story of how back in the 70s, this lady, Penny Kelly, was going through her own spiritual awakening. And it's going to sound crazy to some of you, but for some of you it may not. She had these people come and visit her. These men in tiny robes, like they just kept showing up, and she tells the whole story. And they showed her the future, like what's going to be happening in the future. And it just really affirmed a lot of things that we're already seeing. So this happened back in the 70s. She wrote the book about what she heard from these entities in 2005, and this podcast was recorded in 2018. A lot of the things that she mentioned are happening right now. Like, we're kind of in the thick of some chaotic times, as you all know. So it's affirming to that. And then it's also just gives you so much hope for the future. And so many of the things she says, especially when it comes to education, guys, I think that's why my soul's here, is to help with education. As you guys know, my background, and what I just feel so called to do. So it's just really interesting. It's a 3-part episode. I'll link it in the show notes. Go listen to that if it feels aligning. I think it'll help some of you kind of feel hopeful for the future if you're feeling very overwhelmed about what's happening right now. And of course, tune into yourself. If that doesn't resonate with you, it doesn't resonate with you. Don't listen to it. Be discerning. Practice that muscle. Like we mentioned on every single episode with every single guest, your intuition, your internal guidance is a muscle. So practice using it for every decision you can. And when something feels right, it feels right. When it doesn't feel right, that is your internal guidance guiding you on what is resonant for you. And of course, you guys know I have my own personal internal guidance sessions where I help you connect. You've heard me talk about it. I'll link that in the show notes as well. That is all I have for you this week, my loves, my friends. Again, I hope it felt like you're in a coffee shop having deep talks with Lindsay. I'm just sitting here in my office looking outside at the beautiful trees, and I can hear the birds. I don't have my window open because sometimes that can be overwhelming, those sounds, but it's so beautiful in Arizona right now. I'm trying to leverage this beautiful time before it gets too hot, and I'm just sending you all so much love, all the highest vibes. I'm so grateful that you join me each week. I'm so grateful that you're on this journey with me. I can feel your energy as I say those things. Like I always say, please share any takeaways you have with me over on Instagram at Lindsay with an A.M. Tanner. Love carrying these conversations over onto those platforms and continuing those conversations. Please share this episode with anyone that you think needs to hear this specific message, that it's not all or nothing, and you can be somewhere in between, and you can tune back into yourself. And yeah, sending you all so much love, all the highest vibes, and of course, I'll see you next week on the Alignment Adventure.